When is the right time to hire an associate? If you own your own practice and you're looking to grow and scale your business, it is crucial to do it at the right time. This is Dr. Spencer Coaches. Today I'm going to talk to you about why it is so important to hire an associate at the right time. And really, it's a question of when to start scaling and growing. Now, when I owned my own practice, I bought a practice that already had massage therapists and 4 businesses. So it was already pre-scaled, and I bought into it. And I began to hire more massage therapists. And the way I did it was they got paid based upon what they brought in, 100% commission. So I didn't have to cut into my own profit margin. And the reason why I bring this up is because if you own your own healthcare practice, then you're probably either content with the amount of patients you're getting if you've been in it for 2 to 3 years already. This is for the practices that have been in business for 2 to 3 years. And right now you're making a good amount of money. You've already gone past the startup stage, and now you're in the perseverance. You're relentlessly marketing. You're bringing in new patients, and things seem to be taking off. And maybe you want to cap yourself because you just feel overwhelmed, but you realize that's also going to cap your profit margin. Now, you may have student loans, you may have a goal of buying a house, you may have children that need to be fed. Whatever it is you have going on as a personal goal, your business goals are going to influence your personal goals because we all have personal goals. Listen, nobody becomes a doctor, a healthcare practitioner to live in the poorhouse, to be renting a room in some stranger's house. I mean, we all want to have some degree of success. Owning your own home, owning a car, and being able to own your own property. I mean, that is the American dream. And maybe it is not for you, but for most people it is. And being a business owner, you realize that you got to almost double your profit because you know your overhead. You know the cost of the lease, the cost of the electricity, the cost of an employee, the cost of the products, your time most of all. And you don't want to be spending any more time than you have to. If you're already working 14-hour days, and then through the weekend, 7 days a week, you're sacrificing a lot. And if you have a family, they are the ones really paying the price. So how do you create more time? In other words, you're really open your own business, your own practice, so you have more time, so you can make more money and be able to live the lifestyle that you truly want to live. I mean, let's just be honest. Now, I'm not going to just make this about money. Obviously, you love helping people, and that's why you became a doctor, healthcare practitioner. You're not just doing it for money, but you didn't go through all that schooling, all those tests to make minimum wage. You follow what I'm saying? So we're talking about business principles, not healthcare principles. You are an expert at whatever it is you do, acupuncture, chiropractic, naturopath, you know which herbs, you're a medical doctor, you know which therapies to apply, which medicines to give. But what about your business? When is the right time to hire an associate? When is the right time to hire more employees? Because that's going to cut in your profit margin. And you have to pay another doctor more money than another medical assistant or chiropractic assistant. And for you solopreneurs, you're just winging it in a single office. Well, maybe you're getting an influx of patients and you realize you need to either rent another space or rent a bigger office. And when is the right time to do that? Well, I'm going to talk about the different stages of growth. Because if you start to grow too soon or grow before you scale, you're doomed to fail because you're going to be spending more money than you're making. And you're going to dump all your profit margin into investments in your say nicer office furniture or paying an associate. And you realize you're just not going to bring enough money and you're going to start to cut into your own pay. And that's not what you want to do. Or you realize your profit margin shrinks and now you're in the red because you're paying people too much or you're hiring too many people. You got to keep your expenses low and your profit margin high. Now, often we think of, well, if we want to increase your profit margin, we need to invest in more, leasing another office, hiring more staff, buying better equipment, things of that nature. But if you do that, that's the growing stage, and you have to prepare for that. And that means scaling. So we're going to work backwards here. You ultimately want to grow your practice. But when do you do that? Because hiring an associate is growing your practice. That means you're doing so well that you want to basically give some of your cases to an associate and let them have their own cases while you manage your patients. And then there's a double the amount of patient load, therefore double the profit margin. Hopefully, if you got a good business sense, that is the plan. Now, when do you do that? Because they're not going to just automatically bring in new patients, and most doctors are not going to work on a commission base. They're not salespeople, they're doctors. So how does it all work? How does the business model work? Well, if we work backwards, you need to prepare your business, your practice, by scaling it first. In other words, let's just say, for example, you're seeing 50 patients a week, and you found some brilliant Facebook marketer or a brilliant patient just starts referring everybody. Maybe you have the mayor as a patient and they start referring the entire staff to you. Now you got an influx of 50 new people. And how do you handle that? And you got a one-room office or a two-room office, or just a reception area in an office. How do you handle that? You're renting a room in another practice. You can't handle that. That's why you need to scale. In other words, you need to prepare your infrastructure to be able to handle an influx of new patients. I worked for a chiropractor who saw 300 patients a day. He had 6 treatment rooms, a huge reception area, 2 exam rooms, a back office, and a separate x-ray room, and a closet. The office was huge, and he can handle 300 patients a day. In fact, the first hour, he was seeing 150 patients from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. How did he do it? Because he had a business model that set up a workflow that could support those numbers of patients. The staff knew what to say. They knew how to guide the patient to a specific room. All the paperwork was set up. He would go in knowing what was going on with the patient, and he would give them such care, such attention, that the 30 seconds to a minute that he spent with them felt like 10 to 15 minutes. Nobody ever said they felt rushed. How did he do that? Well, he just had, his personal development gave him that ability. So you see, there's different dynamics to develop. Your own skills, your own demeanor, your own sense of patience and efficiency, your own focus. That's got to be developed first. And we think of scaling, well, preparing the office, well, what do you do for that? Well, before you even begin to scale, you got to go through the viability. You've got to be making enough money to scale. You've got to have a really good profit margin. You should be having 100% to 200% profit margin over your expenses. So your gross profit and your net profit, the difference between the two, and the cost of sales of goods or services is decreased. Your overhead is decreased. Efficient light bulbs, in fact. Getting rid of the incandescent light bulbs, even the fluorescent light bulbs, and switching to LED light bulbs, reducing your PG&E bill. Now, also, your staff needs to be trained, so you got to have a workflow that works with your staff. Now, if you're busy managing your staff and bossing them around, or if you have to tell them what to do every day because they just don't know their job well and you're micromanaging them, or they're not trained well enough, it means you didn't do a good job training them. So they're not going to know what to do when they get 5 new patients in one day or 10 new patients in 1 week, and how to handle those influx of patients. How do you do the insurance? Who does your insurance billing? Are you doing it yourself, or do you outsource it? So you're going to understand that you need delegation. You need a small team to really make it viable, because that's going to be able to enable you to handle more patients. And you don't need to be thinking about the office. You need to be focusing on patients. Your energy needs to be 100% with your patients, not on office stuff, not on office procedures. So now we're going back to, well, you're just starting out, you're a year into it, and you don't make enough money to hire somebody, so you got to do everything yourself. We all start out like that. Most of us start out like that. So let's go back before the viability, the financial success, the small degree of financial success, I'll put it that way. Enough to say, hey, I'm making money now. Now I can go buy a car. I'm still renting, but I can buy a car. A lot of people do that. You look around in the professional world, what do they do with their first good paycheck? They put money down on a car. And they lease themselves a Mercedes or something. And they drive around thinking, showing the world that I've made it. I'm making good money. I'm in a different class now. But did you really make it if you own your own practice? Because you still have an overhead. And what if suddenly your patients drop out and your marketing goes downhill? Now you have this lease payment or car payment to make, and you're going out to fancy restaurants. You can't spend your money, and you still need to budget yourself to reinvest the money back into the business rather than splurging. I mean, this is the biggest mistake. You don't even have to be a doctor or a healthcare practitioner. The biggest mistake any business owner does when they start seeing a healthy profit margin is start splurging on things. And that's the wrong thing. You need to reinvest the money back into the business. So in other words, you're going to persevere. So we're backstepping before the viability. There's a sense of self-sacrifice. You're not hiring maybe you have one part-time person. Maybe you're delegating to a virtual assistant. They're cheaper, and you're using an online scheduling service, so you don't have to have an actual receptionist calling people up, reminding them, giving them a 24-hour notice, or following up with patients and filing your paperwork. You're doing it all yourself. So you're going to come up with office procedures that are really simple, that are really efficient, that you're not floundering around wondering what to do and how to organize files. A filing system. Is it EHR? Is it you're still doing paper at this day and age? Maybe you're just doing Word, and typing things out. Have an Excel sheet or something like that. Or a fillable PDF, before you could afford an EHR software. They get expensive, $500 a month sometimes. Sometimes these EHRs are $20,000 to buy, and you still have to program all of the paperwork into it to put into an iPad to impress your patients, saying we have the latest, greatest technology. If that's your goal should be on your patients, not on the technology. This is a big mistake when a lot of doctors go off and start their own practice, or an acupuncturist, you open your own practice and you want to have the latest, greatest office equipment and to make it the nicest, most elegant place to walk into. And then your energy just sucks because you're stressing over, how am I going to pay for all this? You took loans out, and now you got loans to pay on construction. And whatever it is, the bank, owns your office essentially, and you're still paying a lease. So there's a sense of self-sacrifice. Now, a lot of people start out as an associate. That's what I did. And the doctor that I worked for happened to be a high-level business coach. He coached over 1,000 chiropractors, and he was on the phone for a certain time period of day, every day, coaching them. And I didn't know that until I went to one of his seminars. I said, holy cow, I'm working for this guy. He's up there on stage coaching the whole room, and people are paying him $21,000 a year to get under his coaching. And another doc came up to me and said, Dr. Howe, you work with Dr. Hans. I only talk to him once a week. I'd like to pick your brain. You see him every day. That's when it hit me, the situation that I'm in, the opportunity that I was in. So I learned a lot from him and some other business coaches and some programs that I took. That's where all this is coming from, in my own experience of running my own practice. So let's just backstep to startup now. So working backwards from growth to scaling to viability to perseverance to startup. That's the first stage. You're an associate, and now you feel you got the a handle on things. That's what I did. I ran a satellite practice with a receptionist, a chiropractic assistant, All I really had to do was focus on patients, and then I was in charge of marketing. I would go and set up health screening booths at a gym and go there on a weekly basis and go to the farmer's market every week. And then, so 2 times a week, I'm running a health information booth, after 6 o'clock, from 6 to 9 o'clock, 2 nights a week. And then on the weekends, whenever there's a farmer's market or a zucchini festival, garlic festival, one of these festivals, I was over there for 3 days as well, sacrificing my weekends to build his practice and to keep it going. And that's just something I felt, well, this is what I did. Now I have the experience, and I can do it on my own. So a lot of you docs or even acupuncturists start out as an associate. And then you go off and open up your own practice. You feel, well, I've got a handle on things. I know what practice style I like to do, what kind of patients I like to treat, what issues I like to treat. And maybe you don't want to do what your boss is doing. I worked for an acupuncturist, Dr. Liang, who specialized in fertility. And she made a killing. I mean, she had patients from all over the world. She was helping 45-year-old women get pregnant and making couples very happy. People are getting married later in this day and age, and they're having problems having children now. So she, solved that problem for them. And I saw how she ran her business. So there's, different business models is my point here of how you want to manage your patients, what issues you want to specialize in, because when you own your own practice, when you're an associate and now you're deciding to open up your own practice, you need to brand yourself. In any kind of business, this is the startup stage, branding yourself. You want to make a name for yourself. You want to be known as that go-to person who gets 45-year-old women pregnant or helps shoulder problems or helps with IBS or allergy specialist, whatever area that you want to specialize in, you need to specialize in that. Now, you may have this gung-ho attitude of, I can help everybody and I just want to help everybody. A lot of new doctors have that attitude. I had that attitude. And you think that everybody is just going to walk in with any kind of issue and you're going to help them. That's not the case. You tend to attract what you resonate with. The energy you put out is the energy you get back. And where I'm going with this is your mindset is so important. What you focus on is what you create. And when you're branding yourself, that's what you're going to focus on. All of your conversations, you're going to live, eat, and breathe fertility. You're going to live, eat, and breathe sports chiropractic. You're going to live, eat, and breathe hip problems, or live, eat, and breathe sciatica, or live, eat, and breathe headaches. You're going to specialize in one area. And that's what's going to draw people to you, because nobody knows who you are. You're just starting out. But if you claim to be this specialist, I specialize in headaches. I take care of headaches because this, and how do headaches affect you? You're going to create a marketing message. Why do you treat headaches? What's the impact that headaches have on your demographics? In other words, you need to understand your target market's problem. This is all part of marketing. This is all part of starting out and building your own practice and connecting with your demographics. Now, for me, I hired a business coach that was different than Dr. Hans. I wanted a different perspective on things. I paid $21,000, and it literally paid for itself for the amount of business that business strategy brought in. The coach, it was the Singer coaching program for chiropractors, and he recommended that I go to the UFC gym and give all of the personal trainers free care, and then they refer their clients to me. Now, I know that in this day and age, people don't appreciate anything for free. When it's for free, they take advantage of it, or they say, what's the catch? So I gave them a huge discount of just charging them $30 per treatment. And they were really appreciative. So that's it. And I sold care plans and enrolled them into, care plans, because you don't know how long it's going to take without experience. And I had experience, so I knew how long it would take to get them to 100%. And that's what it also enrolls them into commitment. So I would sell the care plans, or offer the care plans, or let them know how long it's going to take, and just let them know how much it costs. It wasn't selling anything. I'm not trying to convince anybody. In other words, there's a way of communicating what you do for them that's going to create value in what you do, that's perceived value, and you're selling them hope. You hope you can get them, and you're very certain about that hope. There are no guarantees, but when you present yourself with certainty, with conviction, then that conviction exudes outward. You just enroll people through what you believe you can do. So in other words, there's a whole level of communication that needs to be worked on to create value in what you do that enrolls your patients into wanting to get under your care. So you don't have to convince them. You're not selling something. You're just simply explaining what's wrong, why it's wrong, how long it's going to take to get to 100%, how you can help them, and how much it costs. Now, these are the questions of every patient. And as you demonstrate your skills, as you demonstrate what's wrong with them, 90% of the time, people decide on losses avoided over benefits gained. So you talk about the losses, just like dentists do, talk about teeth, tooth decay. It's going to affect your gums, and your gums are going to start to decay, and your teeth will rot, and then you got to pull your teeth, and you're going to get dentures. That's the truth. They're not trying to scare you. They're just telling you the truth. Heart disease, what do medical doctors do? You got high blood pressure. This is your probability of having a heart attack is very high. And what's going to happen, who are you going to leave behind? Your wife and children. You don't want to do that at 50 years old. So I don't want to leave my wife and kids. Do you have a life insurance plan? I don't even want to think about that. I'm going to get my, what are the meds I need to take? And what do I need to do? Change my diet? Do I need to exercise? And that's what motivates people to change to avoid loss. So there's a huge language. Now, I'm saying a lot in this video here. I'm trying to summarize everything with details because you need to understand what it takes to build a solo practice. So you can generate enough patients to create enough revenue where you can begin to delegate because nobody gets to the top alone. Michael Jordan said, talent will win you the game, but teamwork will win the championship. You can only get so far on your own. And you may have the personal pride of, I can do everything myself. I don't need any help. Good luck with that. What medical practice, what healthcare practice, what dentist have you office you walked into and it's just a solo person? No, they have staff because there's a lot of other procedures to do that the dentist simply can't do to create an efficient time for the patient so the patient can get in and out. And to get all the equipment ready, to put it into the autoclave, to sterilize it, to get new equipment ready, to make sure the new equipment is already sterilized. It's a process. And you need to have someone else, an assistant, take care of that process so you can take care of your patients. Same thing with chiropractic. Same thing with medicine. There's always a medical assistant who leads you to the exam room and then takes your temperature, takes your weight, checks your heart rate, checks your heartbeat, does the small things that they're legally allowed to do, and then says, wait right here, the doctor will be with you shortly. Because then the doctor doesn't have to do that. You get an idea of what I'm saying from the startup stage. Now you just got to put in the time. I mean, you may be working 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's just the nature of any business that you're going, whether it's an ice cream store, hamburger place, clothing store, boutique, any and all businesses, when you're starting out, you got to put in the time because you're not making enough money to hire somebody. That's the goal, is to make enough money to hire somebody to take a load off your shoulders. Now that you can hire somebody, that's going to, in other words, you're going to do a ton of marketing, a ton of connecting, a ton of networking. You got social media, you got YouTube, you've got Facebook, you've got Instagram, you've got TikTok, you've got SEO for Google. There's so many levels to internet marketing. Then you have email marketing, right? And then you have networking, going to the Chamber of Commerce, going to Rotary Club, or going to your local gym. That's what I did. I became the chiropractor of the UFC gym. Gave all of the trainers a huge discount, and they wound up referring actually one another. And then they started referring their families. I took care of the entire gym, 150 people working there. The staff was pretty significant. And that's what kickstarted my practice. And doing a health information booth there on a weekly basis drew in patients that really sustained my practice. And then I had a massage therapist, and he brought in about $6,000 a month, and we split that 50-50. And that was just 3 days a week there. Plus he had another gig in San Francisco, another area, and he was making money there. So he was making enough to support himself. And he had his own dedicated room. Now, I had just happened to buy a practice, so I didn't really start from scratch. I had patients handed on to me, patient files handed to me. So I already worked in a practice for a year and a half, plus worked as an associate in his Dr. Hans's primary practice for a good 8 months. And I felt I had a good knack, a good handle on things. For me, the learning curve was in managing. Was in building teamwork, a sense of teamwork. You're going to have a weak spot and you need to work on that. For me, it was, I thought I own the place. I'm the king. You're going to do as I say. It was very domineering, my way or the highway. And that didn't roll over too well with the chiropractic assistant, the front desk girl. And she wound up quitting because she was working for me and the old chiropractor doing work for him while she was under my time clock. And I let her know, you can't work for Dr. Justin while I pay you. I'm not paying you to work for Dr. Justin. She didn't like to hear that. So she didn't even know that the practice was sold. Dr. Justin never told her. She wondered who I was and where Dr. Justin is and why I'm there all the time. She didn't even know that I bought the practice. The old doctor didn't even tell her. So there was, you're going to experience these bumps in the road, if you go the route of buying a practice, or if you want to start from scratch, rent an empty office, fill it with medical equipment, with your table and your, some people start out with just a desk, a laptop, and a table. And then you have your stethoscope, or your needles, and you refer people out to a Chinese pharmacy to buy herbs if you're an acupuncturist, whatever healthcare practice you're in. You know the equipment you need, and that's what you start out with. And it's very simple. And you tend to want to spruce up the office, make it real nice, make it inviting in some random, office building. And then you realize, well, crickets, where are my patients? How do I get my patients? You might have signed a clause if you worked for another doctor that you cannot take the patients that you brought in there with you. A lot of chiropractors make their associates sign one of those. I'm outside of the chiropractor I work for, outside of his demographics. I'm about 30 miles away, so there's no competition clause. I'm not violating. Some of the patients came down and saw me. They didn't like the new associate. They're willing to drive an extra half hour to come see me. You're going to run into things like that if you're an associate. You can't bring the patients from the doctor's office you're working for with you if you're too close. So what do? Where are your new patients going to come from? That's the marketing. You got to have a really strong, solid marketing program that attracts new patients to your services and lets the community know what you can do for them. What problem do you solve? What healthcare problem do you solve? And that's where I find a lot of new doctors just don't understand. Because you're a doctor, you're not a business person. You don't understand marketing. And it's like advertising on TV. You see these TV commercials and you think that I got to make a TV commercial? What do you mean? Do I need to make a variety pack coupon flyer I used to get in the mail back in the 90s? Well, what do I do? Leave my business card at every single bulletin board? They're just going to call me? How do you market? So, in other words, to really generate revenue, there's a process. There are stages. You need to persevere and put your time in. And that's usually the second or third year, the end of the third year. If you made it that far, you've figured something out. And maybe you're just barely making it. And you want to begin to scale so you can see new patients, because you know that if you see new patients, that's going to be an increase in revenue. So that means renting a new office, but no, you don't want to do that. Scaling doesn't involve a lot of buying. It doesn't involve a lot of spending. Scaling is really how to increase your profit margin at a minimal expense. You're not leasing a new office. You're not hiring more staff. You're preparing. In other words, how do you streamline your workflow? How do you shorten your visits so you can see more patients? How do you actually create results with less work? It's all about leveraging. When you think about leveraging, how do you leverage your time to get the most out? In other words, as a business person, you're going to think in terms of return of investment. And also for the patient, how much can you do for them in how little time without making them feel rushed? So if you can see more patients, You get them in and out, and believe it or not, most people don't want to spend time in your office. They want to come in, get treated, and leave. Unless they're a lonely person and they don't talk to anybody, which happened after COVID, and you get a lot of patients who are lonely and they want to talking about their life with you, and that happened to me because they didn't have anyone to talk to during the shelter shutdown. So it's an interesting world now after COVID. The point I'm making is you need to create a practice management system. That involves patient management, that involves office procedures, that involves a marketing plan, and that involves your own time management, your own schedule, and how to create the most time for yourself, really, so you don't lose your mind. And a lot of doctors just don't understand this. Now, if this sounds as complicated, it's because it is. I'm trying to take over 9 years of experience and compress it into this video. But let's just break it down. You've got your startup stage, you've got your perseverance stage, then you've got your viability. You're starting to make some money, and then you scale. So you cannot scale until you go through these 3 stages, and then you grow. So growing comes last. A lot of people want to skip the growing without scaling, without viability, without perseverance, and they just start it up. If you start investing, I had a farmer in the Philippines as a client. She wound up investing 100% of her profit margin into new equipment and then didn't have any money to buy the larvae to feed her shrimp. And she was kind of stuck. And her family gave her money to invest, and she blew it all. So they weren't talking to her anymore, and she didn't have any money to buy larvae to grow more shrimp. Well, she wound up taking her 4-pond farm and just using 1 pond and spending a little bit what she had on some larvae to grow shrimp in 1 pond, and then she'll take the profit margin and grow 2 ponds and then 3 ponds and grow it like that to get herself out of the bread. So you see what I mean? When you start spending your money in the most expensive equipment, don't buy the most latest, greatest EHR, the latest, greatest blood pressure cuff, or whatever it is that you're thinking about buying that you think will impress patients. Patients don't care about that. Patients only care about how much care do you have, how well do you understand them, and do you get results or not. That's the primary concern of a patient, not how nice your office is. They don't care about that. Some petty people will, but you're going to focus. You want those kind of people as patients. Now, as a chiropractor, I have the right to choose my patients. I can literally turn a patient down. Medical doctors cannot do that by law. They'll have their license of practice taken away. I don't know what it is for acupuncturists. I don't believe you have to take a patient on. So you can literally pick and choose your patients, or naturopaths. If you don't like a patient, you can just say, I don't think I'm a right fit for you. I'm going to refer you. You do have to refer them to another licensed doctor or healthcare practitioner by law, and then close their file. Or you don't even have to open a file. You can just have a consultation. You can get an idea of their demeanor, and you can burn yourself out when you have rude, obnoxious, stuck-up, disrespectful patients. And when you feel unappreciated, you come to work every day feeling unappreciated, you begin to question, why am I doing this? I'm here to help you, and they're spinning in my face. So who are you attracting to you? What kind of patient do you want to see? In other words, what demographics do you want to specialize in? That's something you got to think about. What problem do you want to specialize in? What is the problem of that target market? Maybe you like elderly people. You really love the geriatric community. They're a joy to work with. They're overall their insecurities. They're not worried about what people think of them. They're very friendly. They're not stressed out anymore. They are themselves, completely themselves, very playful, funny, really great clientele in my experience. And then you focus on geriatric problems. It could be Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, arthritis, osteoporosis, menopause. You specialize in the problems of those demographics, and you really do your best to solve those problems. You're not just putting on a show. For me, I like sports. I love working with athletes. They're coachable. The improvement of performance is almost immediate. They have a high degree of appreciation for their increase in performance, and they express that. It's very rewarding working with athletes. They're young, they're impressionable. You can teach them a lot about health. They absorb it all. They're willing to take it on. whoever maybe you want to focus on women's, issues, gynecological disorders, whatever it is, men's fertility disorders, whatever it is, you specialize in that, because when you really specialize in that, you're going to really get to know it well. And when you meet patients of that particular problem, they're going to know that you understand them. You're going to be able to empathize with them more efficiently and effectively, where they're going to want to come in to see you because you get them. And that's what's most important when you're in that stage of wanting to attract new patients, because new patients ultimately means more revenue, which means an increase in profit margin, which means now you can save money. You put that money into your business account and you build that up. So now you got money to either lease out a bigger office and hire more staff, or lease out a new office, or hire an associate doc so you can take time off, share your office when you're not there, maybe cut your hours down and then rent it out to someone else for a few hours. There's all sort of things you can do to bring in revenue and still keep your patient base without losing your patients. Now, if you want to know more about how to create a successful healthcare practice model and what models exist and what a business model is, you go ahead and click on the link below. You can schedule a consultation with me, and I can give you a 2024 business plan, a mindset coaching session, because your thoughts and your attitude are going to influence who you see and who you attract to you, as well as a high-performance nutrition plan that's going to help shred those holiday pounds off and keep your energy levels even keeled so you don't have spikes. All that is going to be complimentary. So go ahead. You have nothing to lose. Click on the link below so you can make more money, have more fun, and have more time to spend with the people who matter. This is Dr. Spencer. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.